Hi, my name is Moline. I am a macro photographer from South Florida, and today I am partnering with Fstoppers to show you how to take any lens camera combination and turn it into a macro photography rig. So when most people think about macro photography, what they think about is getting close to the subject, right? Magnification, being able to see these minute little details that cannot be seen by the naked eye. So the technical definition of macro is the 1-to-1 ratio between the sensor and the subject, which means that the subject is being projected onto the sensor as its original size. So most camera manufacturers, like in the case of Canon, make lenses like this 100mm L, which produces a 1-to-1 magnification ratio. But we have these other lenses, like in the case of this 50mm Pentax lens or this 28mm Tamron lens, that are not designed to shoot macro. However, there is a way to take these lenses, these very common lenses, and turn them into macro lenses. Let me show you how to do it. What we have here is a reverse mounting ring. What this is just a ring with thread that can mount onto your lens. It uses the lens thread where the filter goes, and then it utilizes the back of the mount for whichever specific camera you're using. In this case, we have a Canon one. And this one is a 52mm, which is the same thread as this Pentax 50mm lens. So what you do is that you start mounting it in front of the front element, like you were putting on a filter, which exposes the back of the lens, and this is what we're going to be using to take the picture. So what we're doing right now is we are taking the front element and we're going to reverse it onto the camera, and then we're going to place the red dot onto the red dot the same way that we would do if we were mounting any lenses, and we'll simply reversing this lens. As you can see, the front element it's inside and the back element is being exposed. Now by doing this is going to allow us to have a 1-to-1 magnification on this 50mm lens. Let's talk about the lens. This 50mm Pentax lens is a very popular lens to do reverse ring like we're doing today, and same as this 28mm Tamron. The reason why is because these lenses have an aperture control ring and we can manually control the aperture. When we're using these reverse rings, the camera contacts are no longer talking to the lens, and therefore the camera cannot control the aperture. With modern lenses like this that you cannot control manually, you have to know a secret of how to set your aperture before removing the lens. I will show you how to do this later. Before we take the picture, let me talk to you about my settings. I'm going to set it up at f8 because this is how I get the most depth of field and sharpness out of this lens. And I'm going to set up the camera at 100 ISO. For the flash, I'm going to be using this Canon flash. This is a Canon 580EX2 we'll be using today with a light modifier so that we can bounce the light to the front of the camera. But technically speaking, you could use any flash. The sync speed of this flash is 1/200th of a second. So I'm going to set up my shutter speed on this camera at 1/200th of a second. To demonstrate how this is going to work, we're going to use a beautiful model from South Florida. This is a female Phidippus Regis jumper spider. So for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to put our beautiful model onto these leaves and I'm going to show you what a 1-to-1 magnification looks like. Another thing I should mention about using the reverse rings is that because the lens is backwards, the focus doesn't work anymore, and we're going to have to focus by bringing the camera close back and forth towards the subject until we hit that focal plane. So as you can see in this photograph, this is what we're getting out of this lens at 1-to-1. You can see how the spider doesn't fully fill the frame, and in order for you to fully fill the frame, you need to get closer. For that, we're going to utilize this 28mm lens. When we use the reverse ring on a 28mm lens, since the 28mm is a wide-angle lens, all the elements are being reversed, and therefore is compressing the image and is creating a higher magnification ratio. In this case, this will be 3 times magnification compared to the 50mm. This concept applies to all focal lengths. The wider the lenses, the greater the magnification. Let's take off this 50mm lens and let's put on this 28, and let me show you what this 3 times magnification looks like. So the 28 Tamron has a different filter thread, and therefore we're gonna have to use an actual adapter that goes in front of our reverse ring. You can see it here. I'm removing this one from the 50mm lens, which has a thread of 49, and then I'm going to utilize this 52mm thread onto the Tamron, and let's see what we can do with 3 times magnification. As you can see in this photograph, we're able to fill up more of the frame with the subject because we are at 3 times magnification. However, you can notice that we're starting to lose depth of field. This is a natural result of getting closer to your subject. Now, if you want to get even closer to your subject without having to spend a lot of money on expensive lenses, we can add these extension tubes. Extension tubes work quite simple. We will attach the reverse lens onto the tube, and then we'll take this tube and we'll put it onto the camera. By doing this, we are bringing the focal point closer to the subject, allowing us to get greater magnification. So by utilizing these tubes, I'm gaining about 2 times magnification, which by utilizing the 28mm, I'm getting about 5 times magnification total. However, due to the physics of adding extension tubes, I'm losing about 2 stops of light. To compensate for that, I'm going to increase my flash by 2 stops. As you can see, 5 times magnification gets really close to your subject, and all this can be done by utilizing 2 pieces of equipment that cost under $20. I purchased this reverse ring and these macro tubes online for about $20 for the pair. And I also purchased these 2 lenses, the 50 and the 28mm, for about $50 and $25, which means you don't need a lot of money to get started into macro photography. Don't feel that you have to use these cheap lenses to do your macro. You can also utilize the 16 lenses you may own. As I mentioned earlier, newer lenses require a different technique to lock the aperture. The reason being is because these lenses need to talk to the camera in order to close and open the aperture. However, modern lenses, once you flip them over and using the reverse rings, they will no longer be talking to the camera, and therefore we're gonna have to do this small trick to lock the aperture. Let me use this 100mm as an example. So first, I'm going to take off the caps and the lens filter, and I'm gonna place it on the camera. I'm attaching this lens without any rings so that the camera can talk to the lens. I'm gonna turn on the camera, I'm gonna set up the aperture. In this case, I'm gonna leave this aperture at f16, and then I'm going to press the AE lock button so I can lock the aperture on the camera, and then I'm going to release the lenses by pressing the release button as well, like this. Now, as you can see, looking through the lens, the aperture has been locked at f16. To demonstrate how this can change, let me put the lens back onto the camera. I'm gonna open it up to 2.8, and I'm gonna show you guys how this looks. Once the lens is back into the camera, I'm just simply going to turn the wheel, and I'm going to put it back into 2.8. I'm gonna press the lock button one more time, and I'm going to release the lens. And you can see now that the aperture is fully open at 2.8. So once again, let's put the lens back on and let's set it up into f16. Once the aperture is dialing where I want it, I'm going to press the lock button again, and I'm going to release the lenses one more time. And you can see again that we're back into f16. So now the next step is to attach the reverse ring onto this lens, and then I'm going to attach this lens to the camera. So now that we have this 100 reversed, let's take some shots and see what we get. As you can see in this picture, we were able to get this lens at f16 and get great results. Even though it takes more time to have to lock this lens in the camera to set up the aperture, you're able to do this with any other kit lens you may have. So hopefully this lesson has taught you a simple and economic way to get into macro photography. If you want to learn more about photography, head over to fstoppers.com. If you want to learn more about macro photography from me, sign up on the link below for our mailing list. Thank you guys. I hope these tips were helpful, and I can't wait to see what results you get.